Hi guys, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be more of a discussion rather than a review video, as the book in question, I would struggle reviewing this book. So to be a bit different, I thought I would just discuss it in general, because there's a lot in this book and most of it went over my head, but I'll go for that in a minute. Anyway, the book in question is called The Frog Prince Part 2. Yes, this is a sequel book. I read Part 1, I think, last year, and this is by an author whose name is Madam Crystal Butterfly. I think last year when she probably reached out to me asking me if I would like to read her book, which is Part 1. I'll have it linked down below in case you want to check it out. And yeah, I really found it interesting. It was different, I'll say that. And yeah, after I read it, I knew it was a second part to it, so I thought, okay, at some point I'm probably going to read part 2. Didn't really have any plans about when that was going to be. I just wrote it on my list of the little list I've got of books I've got to read from small or unknown authors, and this one was on that list, and I thought, okay, I might as well read it now. She didn't ask me to. I just thought, okay, because I've read part 1, I might as well read part 2. So this is going to be a spoiler-free video, and I mean, I don't really think I could spoil this book even if I tried. And this is going to be my own thoughts and feelings regarding this book as well, guys. I also want to say, because this is a sequel, this is part 2. This is a direct continuation from part 1. So if you haven't read part 1, I might mention stuff that happened in that book, especially the ending of part 1. So if you're watching this and you haven't read part 1 and you want to, just go and read it and come back to this video, because I will be saying what happened at the end of part 1. So before I go any further, guys, let's just go straight over to the author now, Madam Crystal Butterfly, where she'll just be having a discussion about her work and herself as an author.
Okay, little unstable landing. Sorry I'm a little late. I had to battle a dragon for my library card. Long story short, my library card is gold colored, so the dragon took it, and I had to get in a magical battle with it to get it to give it back, so I could, check out a few books from that local library that I wanted to get. Anyway, I won the fight and got my library card back, although I have no idea why it even took it. I mean, since when can a dragon not to tell the difference between a gold-colored library card and actual gold? Anyway, we're dragon. Whew. It was breathing fire and everything, lovely viewers. But let me get my fan, cool off a little bit, and allow me to introduce myself. Hello, lovely viewers. I am author Madam Crystal Butterfly, and I am the author of 4 fantasy stories. My first story I will introduce to all of you is my most recent story, Realms, the Hidden Fairy. Now, in Realms, the Hidden Fairy, you meet a young woman named Willow, who, when she was a baby, about 3 years old, little toddler, her parents disappeared. What happened to them? She don't know. And the only person who does know is her aunt, who has tried to tell her what happened to her parents, but every time her aunt tries to tell her about her parents, she's hit with this overwhelming fear, and Willow and her aunt's boyfriend have concluded that her aunt must have some kind of PTSD from the incident where her parents disappeared, which is why her aunt can't bring herself to tell Willow exactly what happened. Now, the story kicks off when Willow is fresh out of high school, thinking about college, and making life plans. Part of those life plans are figuring out what on earth happened to her mom and dad, and she believes she's found a clue. Now, while visiting a local park to rest a little bit because she was stressed out and meditating a little bit on the clue she found, Willow spots a fairy fighting a troll. And in that moment, not only does she have to accept the fact that fairies and trolls exist, she has to help the fairy escape from this troll because it's trying to kill her and it seems serious. So, will Willow succeed in helping this poor fairy with her troll battle? And also, does Willow suddenly running into a fairy and a troll duking it out to the death have anything to do with her mysterious missing parents? Well, lovely viewers, you will just have to read Realms the Hidden Fairy to find out. The next story I wish to tell you about is my story, Violet Evergreen and the Seeds of Rebellion. Now, the story kicks off when Violet is still small. Her parents have just been murdered, and the court has decided that she's responsible. What? Well, in Violet's world, everybody has magic. And the court, even though doctors have told them that this is not true and there's no evidence to this fact, the court has still decided that Violet has UMD, unstable magic disorder, meaning she lost control of her powers and it killed her parents. So they decide to award custody over her to some relatives she doesn't know very well, and they don't exactly seem to be nice people. The next parts of the story will be fast forwarding to when Violet is an adult, and she's still under the custody of these people because the type of custody that these relatives were given are the type that would still give them custody over her until she is 25 years old. Yeah, that's really jacked up, but that's what happened. So, Violet has been living under the thumb of these really cruel guardians her entire life. She's entered adulthood. She wants to live her life. She wants her freedom, and she wants to know who really killed her mom and dad and why were they determined to blame her for it. Will Violet succeed in her quest for freedom and answers? Or will she fail and be trapped in the cage her guardians have forced her into for the rest of her life? Well, you'll just have to check out Violet Evergreen and the Seeds of Rebellion to learn more, lovely viewers. All right, the last couple of books that I have written to wow you that I wish to tell you a little bit about are Curse of the Frog Prince Parts 1 and 2. Now, my Curse of the Frog Prince books are the first entries into my Butterfly Tales series. This is a series of alternative fairy tales with a bunch of magical shenanigans. So, in Curse of the Frog Prince, you meet Princess Akinyi, who's in a lot of trouble. Her kingdom has been taken over by this jackass, and this same guy murdered her father, and he's forcing her to marry him. So, not doing good. Akinyi is at her wit's end. She doesn't know what to do. Her younger brother, who is heir to the throne, had to escape in order to raise their armies to take back the kingdom. And she's stuck there counting down the days till she's forced to marry the man who murdered her father. So she's at her lowest. She doesn't know what to do. She's just perplexed what to do. And one day when she's messing with her family heirloom, which is this gold ball, it suddenly gets away from her. And as she chases the ball, she loses it in the lake and just gives up. Her heirloom's gone. She's just going to accept that. And as she tries to walk away after losing something she cared about, she runs into a talking frog. And this frog tells her, "Hey, I know you want your ball back. I can get that for you. I can also help you with this tyrant problem you seem to be having. But you're going to have to do something for me in exchange." Is it worth it for her to take this talking frog's deal? You'll just have to read to find out. Now, before I go, lovely viewers, there is one thing I want to say. Curse of the Frog Prince Parts 1 and 2 were originally the only entries I was going to do when doing the frog portion of the Butterfly Tales, but my muse had other plans, and there is going to be a part 3 to Curse of the Frog Prince that will be coming out later in 2024, so keep your eyes peeled. Part 3 will be out soon, and when that comes out, it will conclude the frog portion of the Butterfly Tales, and I will move on to the next Butterfly Tales adventure. Anyway, my lovelies, those are the stories I wanted to share with you. And I have many, many more thrilling stories coming out soon. Now, if you please, lovely viewers, sit back, relax, and enjoy this review.
So, thank you for that. I like this author because she's very theatrical and she's very unique. That's probably one way to put it. But I will have all of her contact information linked down below, so please do not hesitate to reach out to her. So, The Curse of the Frog Prince Part 2 picks up right from where Part 1 left off. Where, just a little recap, you have a princess called Princess Akinyi. Sorry if I've said that or pronounced that wrong or slightly wrong, but that's as close as I'm ever going to get it. She is our main character of this whole world in these books. In part 1, she came across this talking frog and who was making like deals with her and all that stuff. And at the end of the book, we see a Kinyi being turned into a frog, and at the same time, the frog being transformed into a human prince. Now, in this book, it follows up from that. Akinyi, knowing that she's been turned into a frog, more specifically a blue frog, you see her on one of the variations of the cover of the book. She's very taken aback by this. She's very angry, as you probably can imagine, and she feels betrayed by this prince who's done this to her. At first, she doesn't know how to speak. She can't speak, but as time goes on, she gets the ability to talk again. And the prince explains stuff to her, and he explains that magic is real. Magic is is in with loads of people within this kingdom. All within this kingdom, there are several magical families. These magical royal families, and most people, not everyone, has the ability to perform magic. And there's all these you know good kings and bad kings that want to exploit this. There's all these artifacts that will enhance people's abilities and turn them evil and make them more powerful. And the prince has these two kind of helpers, these minions called Sparkle and Kitten. I think that's what they're called. And they kind of teach Akinyi to do some basic magic spells, making herself turn invisible and all that type of stuff. That kind of line. They're along that kind of line, and we find out that the prince is trying to get Akinyi's father's spell book. I think it's what it is, and the ball that Akinyi had in part 1. He wants to get this magic ball and this magic spell book. And at first he's saying that he is trying to get them because of the right reasons. But as the story progresses, we find out that he's got hidden motivations, and it's not just him, and it's not as black and white as it appears to be. And everyone has always hidden motivations. You never really know who to trust and who to believe. Kind of like how Akinyi feels throughout this story. She doesn't really know who to trust, and as the reader, you don't know who to trust as well. Even though this book is kind of small, I think it's about probably standard 400 pages long for a fantasy book. There is a lot of explanation and a lot of stuff within this book. There's a lot of context within this book. So that is basically the story of part 2 in a nutshell. Now, I had some, I won't say complaints, but I had some kind of difficulties when reading this book. Like, when you are reading a fantasy book within a series, whether it's in a trilogy or a massive saga with 20 billion books, you want to be able to go from one book to the next and be able to jump back into that world and be introduced to the characters again. Yes, it may take you a couple of chapters to get back into the rhythm of things, but you should be able to jump from book to book with a sizable gap you're in between each book, and not be somewhat confused about who the characters are and the world in general. And it should be able to like fit around you like a cozy blanket and feel familiar again. But with part one, because there was so much into it, so much involved in this book, and we had so many like returning characters that I had to kind of familiarize myself and get used to again and remember who they were again. And we had all these new characters that were introduced in book two that I had to get used to as well. It was kind of a struggle in that way. The book is written fairly good as well. It had a good flow to it. Um, there is loads of um, lore in this book, and I feel that if you reread this book numerous times, you will probably get used to it and appreciate it more. I mean, I wouldn't mind rereading it a second time. So when I was about to finish this book, I was thinking, okay, this is a okay book. It's not the best thing I've ever read, and it's not the most terrible book I've ever read this year or have ever read. But I was thinking to myself, well, you know, I've actually read part one, I've read part two. I know that there's a part three coming out because I watched the clip that the author sent me. And I was thinking to myself, well, you know, I've read part one, I've read part two. You know, they're both fine books. But I was thinking, okay, you know, I'll just leave it at part two. Okay, part three's coming out, that's great. But I'll just leave it to the side and I'll just move on to the next things. But at the end of the book, I won't spoil what happens at the end of the book. I don't like it when people spoil the endings of books. But at the ending of this book, Akinyi comes across a character that she completely butts head with, and their banter with each other is so diverse and so different. With this character feeling like they're above everyone else and that they are superior to everyone else and to Akinyi. And I feel that they are in for a rude awakening in book three, and they will completely change their character, and they will, yeah, evolve and improve as the story progresses in part three. But because of that character being introduced to the mix, especially with our main character, I feel that that has encouraged me dramatically to pick up book three when that originally comes out, or when that does come out. So what did I like about this book? I liked some of the characters. I liked Akinyi, our main character. I mean, you got to somewhat like the main character, I guess. I liked Sparkle. Kitten was somewhat hit and miss. She wasn't in this. In this book that much. I liked the whole lore with all this magic and these magical families as well, and the backstory with all that. I would love to get more backstory on that. But what I didn't like about this book is that I felt that there was that kind of barrier that I had trouble going through, from going from book one to book two. I had trouble remembering who the characters were, um, their relationships, how they acted. I had trouble getting back into this world and getting reintroduced to this world. But as I said, all that will probably go away on a reread which I will do when book three is announced. I will be rereading part one and part two, pretty close to the release date of part 3, because I feel that these books you should read pretty much back to back, or as close to each other as you possibly can. So what am I going to rate the Frog Prince Part 2? Unfortunately, I have got to be fair with you guys, and I've got to be fair with the author. This is only my opinion, guys, so if you like this book, then that is great. I mean, I liked it too, but not as much as I would have liked. So I've got to be fair, and I've got to rate this book a middle of the road score, which is a 2.5 stars. What I would like to see in part 3, the supposed conclusion of this whole story is a massive battles, the consequences of these evil rulers and kings and queens getting this magic and using it for their evil purposes. I would like to see characters evolve and change, and I would like to get more backstory on these whole magical families, and just more like kicking ass and taking names, that type of stuff. So hopefully I've done this book justice. I don't really do many book discussions. I usually do full reviews on the books, but because I feel that I would have trouble explaining this book to someone, I feel that a discussion would be more appropriate, like an over and like a quick scan of the book. So let me know, have you read The Frog Prince Part 2? Have you read Part 1? What did you think about them? Have you read anything else by this author? I know that this author's not got a massive backlog of work, but after The Frog Prince story is all told, I wouldn't mind going and reading something else from this author. And I like how this whole story is basically like a twist and a retelling of the standard, or the original Princess and the Frog story. I just want to insert here as well, guys, that even though these covers of these books do look like YA and children's books, they are not, guys. They are for adults and mature readers only. They do include some adult themes, so beware about that. But let me know if you haven't read these books. Let me know if I've maybe encouraged you and inspired you to pick them up and give them a chance. And thank you, Madam Crystal Butterfly, for letting me experience your books. It's always exciting to read something like this from someone that I would have never picked up or probably even heard of, and spreading the word about your work. So I better let you go, guys. So with all that out the way, I'll see you on my next video.